We have with us the CMD, Mr. Irfan Razack. Hi, Mr. Razack. Thanks so much for joining in this morning to discuss this particular deal. Could you give us a few details? How much have you paid for this particular stake? What is the debt that you'll be taking onto your books as well?
Yeah, we've bought this stake. What it translates is we get 2.13 million square feet in the SPV, which is currently yielding about 135 crores. The overall enterprise value is being valued at around 1,400 crores plus, but the actual payout is around 600 crores. And this is actually a combination of two deals. It's because there's a sub SPV in this, which has some residential property which is ready, and that also will once it's sold off, it'll pay back almost immediately. And the funding has been largely through internal accruals, and we had recently taken some NCDs, and this has helped us to buy this asset.
So this 600 crore of payout that you've done is what portion of it would be attributed to debt, and therefore what would be the total debt on the books?
See, now what has happened is recently we had done an NCD. So we have got from our internal accruals, cash flows, and a combination of this debt. Both put together, we have managed to pay this amount, and this has helped us to buy the stake, and I believe it's going to add more value to the overall company's asset base, and in the long term leaves us a lot of opportunities because since the SPV is owned by us fully, we have flexibility to do,
Okay, so no fresh increase in your debt, and if you could just give us the number, what does the debt currently stand at?
I mean, honestly, right now, if you ask me offhand, I will not be able to tell you my debt number. But I think the consolidated debt would be around what it was in the last quarter. And if there has been some fresh infusion, it will be for some general growth in the business, and some other probably some land that we would have done.
All right, so let's not talk about your total debt, but what is the debt increase? I mean, from this particular deal, there'll be no increase in debt because of this deal. There'll be some increase, right?
Yeah, it could be. It's a combination. I mean, you can't attribute it directly to that.
Correct.
But at the overall, I believe there should be some. But even if there is some increase in debt, what happens is it becomes a self-liquidating debt, because we do have debt in the SPV itself, which we've taken over, and that is a lease rental discount, and the rent goes to pay off the debt.
All right. So you're also talking about some residential property that you look to dispose of. What is the value of that particular residential property?
Yeah, see, now there we have stock worth selling price around 300 plus crores, 350 crores approximately.
Okay.
And that once it's sold off, that will also bring in a lot of cash. And since it's a ready asset, since the property just got ready, and there's an opportunity for us to sell it off, the units, and it'll give us additional cash flow, and also bring in fresh cash flow into the company.
Okay, so this is basically like some, residential receivables of Exora, right? Which you will be able to cash in.
It's not really receivables. It's a ready property which is to be sold.
Okay.
I mean, it's a villa development, and I think that once sold will give us that much more cash into, so much infusion will come into the company.
Okay, some more questions. With this Exora now in your books, will you be able to achieve your rental guidance of 450 to 500 crore for F516? And secondly, in numbers, if you could tell us what is the growth in the rental yield, currently at 135 crore for this year, but what should be the rough growth in this particular property on a year-on-year basis?
Now, this will definitely enable us to achieve our guidance that we've given on the rental guidance, for sure. And of course, now whatever our targets were in terms of reaching for the guidance for rent has arrived. Now, if you ask me what will be the future growth of rental in the company, I think we are looking at, like right now we are constructing a couple of malls which will get ready next year. Then there is in the pipeline quite a large number of commercial property which is on the drawing board, and some are already started construction. So all this will definitely add up to phenomenal growth on the rental portfolio.
Correct.
And it could go anywhere between 800-850 crores in the next 3 years.
All right, and from this particular property, sir?
That is if we don't buy any ready property.
All right, Mr. Razak, just to understand, currently you had around 32% stake in this particular venture. So were you accounting for around 42 crores out of the 135 crores, and now that will go up to around 99%? Till now you were accounting for around some part,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. We're just accounting for the stake that we had. Now since we bought the overall stake, we have to account for the whole thing. And I believe it's an opportunity to do a lot of things. You see, REITs is still on the cards. Let's see what happens in the budget, because we've got now 2 SPVs which we almost fully own, and that will give us that much more flexibility to do whatever we want independently.
You've done 4 acquisitions of rental assets since FY13. Any more on the anvil?
Not at the moment. See, whatever we've done, the acquisition is mostly some of the properties which we only had developed. So it's in a way, since we know the location, the title, everything else, makes it much more easier for us to handle it, and we are more in control of the property rather than acquiring someone else's property. But if an opportunity does present itself and we feel the asset is really worth it and is coming at a decent number, and if we have the financial cash flows, I think we will definitely have an open mind to look at more. But I think right now our concentration will be to construct more, which is on the cards, on paper, and some work is already happening on ground. So a combination of that will lead to, as I said, the numbers that I talked about.
All right, Mr. Razak, thanks so much for joining in and sharing all those details. All the best for the remainder of this year. But the